one of the most exciting things all year in 2020 is what happens when we end the quarantine. Earlier this week, we got some negative news here in Washington State. A number of counties are seeing an uptick in cases, and as a result, several counties rolled back some of the reopening phases. We have four phases, and I think a few counties went back a phase or two as a result. I feel bad about that, but at the same time, it's going to make what I'm going to say even more exciting. It's a silver lining. I mean, I don't wish anybody to get hurt or to lose a family member, but at the same time, I'm really trying to enjoy safely what comes out of this. And what's going to come out of this is that a lot of people are probably going to break up, right? Which is not a bad thing when you think about it. If two people are not going to fit, whether COVID-19 makes them realize it or whether something else makes them realize it, the sooner they realize it, the faster they can move on with their lives, right? Oh, as COVID-19 has shown, we never know when we're going to take our last breath. And the sooner we can realize we're in a not so good relationship, it's a benefit, right? I ended a relationship as a result of the lockdown, but I'm not bitter about it because the sooner I ended that relationship, the faster I can move on to other things like writing computer games or some other things in my life. Especially during this lockdown period, I noticed how much money I saved just by not going on dates with my girlfriend. I ended up losing my job, unfortunately, like 30, 40 million other Americans. I got about the same amount with my unemployment as I was making, and yet my bank account has exploded. You gotta remember, I was living in my car at the beginning of the spring, and I moved into an apartment. Even still, my bank account just exploded. And it just goes to show that the sooner I got out of it, the better, if we weren't going to be a good fit. Right. But what I'm really excited about is that there's going to be other people just like me who are getting out of unmatched relationships, right? And then we can go out and meet somebody new, right? But I'm excited about going to another country to look for my future wife. One of the big problems here in the United States, and to a lesser extent Western Europe, is that well, for one thing, the guy usually has to make the first move here in the United States, right? Just join any dating site and you'll see that most of the time the guy starts the first conversation, right? In Eastern Europe, in Asia, especially in Taiwan, in Japan, not so much in China, but in the other Asian countries, and in Eastern Europe, Poland, and to a lesser extent, Germany, for the most part, the girl starts the first conversation in a relationship, and I like it that way because it's already screened for me, right? I don't have to start 10 conversations in order for one to bite, right? Like I said, we only have a limited amount of time here on Earth, right? The sooner I can dive in, the better, right? I get a lot of learning experiences. I talked about how at the beginning of COVID I broke up with a girl. I'm not bitter about that. I gained a lot of experiences. It's kind of funny because sometimes I'll be talking on the phone with my mom. You know, obviously I haven't gone home because of COVID, and we've been talking. And obviously my parents are kind of stressed out and stuck at home too. And we talk at least twice or three times a week. My mom always gets very upset at me for wasting time, money, energy with these girls, and then having nothing to show for it. I don't have nothing to show for it. I have experiences to show for it. Actually, my parents recently almost got separated. They got into a disagreement over some personal lifestyle issues, and my mom complained that she was my dad's first girlfriend, and he has no experiences, and yet she's complaining that I'm wasting all my resources messing around. It's just kind of funny. I do hope to. I do hope to be a little bit more efficient, and that's why I love going to other countries to mingle. The other thing I love Let's pull up a map so I can show where I'm thinking about going. So I live in Seattle, Washington, and I'm gonna circle a few things that I think are good places to mingle. Any small town USA, like if we look at the middle of the US, the Rocky Mountain areas, the Midwest, maybe not so much the Midwest, but the Rocky Mountain areas and maybe down south in Texas. A slower pace of life, right? People also have a more live and let live kind of attitude, right? Here in Seattle, one of the big problems I run into is that people like to judge my eating habits, right? It's very difficult to. I lived in Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania, and I lived in Rochester, New York, and in Rochester, if somebody offers you food and you say no, that's like the end of it, right? You can still hold a relationship with somebody and eat very different foods over in Rochester, New York. You really can't do that here in Seattle. People are very self-conscious. They see you eating healthy, and for whatever reason, they don't want to eat healthy, and they put all the blame on you, right? It doesn't seem to occur when you go into the into the Rocky Mountain areas in small town USA. But again, different lifestyles, right? I would probably never marry anybody in those kind of areas, but they make nice friends, right? You don't pick on people. I would imagine that right now I'm recording this on June 25th, 2020. The problems of racism probably not as severe over there. Right? We have a live and let live attitude, right? So I obviously mentioned the one thing I love about let me circle it Japan, South Korea, Taiwan is that one of the big problems I run into in any sort of relationship is that I waste a lot of time with the girl and then I discover she wants children. I had this problem a few years ago, and the girl I broke up at the beginning of COVID, that was part of the reason as well. Here in the United States, it's very awkward to find out if the girl wants children early on in the relationship. You waste 3 to 6 months dating her, and then she wants children, and that's the end of it. I mean, it's still a good learning experience, but I'm getting a little bit too old to be still going to school about how to date, right? In Taiwan, in Japan, people talk very casually about their ideas of having children. Actually, in Japan, you don't even need to ask. Most people don't even want to have children over there. One of the big benefits of COVID for Japan is that a lot of people are stuck at home having children, right? I heard that was a big boost to Japan. But most of the time, you don't have to ask people in Japan if they want to have children. The answer is no, right? Same thing with Taiwan, same thing with South Korea, and to a lesser extent, that's starting to happen in China as well, right? In Taiwan, I would say people have more of a live and let live attitude with their lifestyle issues, at least more so than Seattle. Not as much compared to the Rocky Mountain region or small town America kind of area. In Taiwan, let's see, I find I don't have to explain myself so much when I refuse food. See, here in the United, I obviously I didn't argue with the people involved here, but I went to interview at a job one time, and on the job application, it clearly states you don't have to disclose if you have any disabilities, right? Just like any other job application, right? But the hypocrisy of that is that at the job interview, they take you to a restaurant, and if you have to explain that, food is very tricky, can we do something involving anything other than food? People push why, and then you got to explain that, you react badly to food. The hypocrisy! I thought you didn't have to disclose any disabilities. Can you imagine if you went to a job interview in a wheelchair and the person interviewing you had disbelief that you couldn't walk and asked if you could get up for a second so he could see what kind of problem? Can you imagine if somebody asked you? That's the equivalent of how we treat food right here in the Seattle area, right? It's not so much that big a problem in Taiwan or Japan. Actually, Taiwan got over the COVID problem a lot quicker than a lot of other places because this is my conjecture here, but here in Seattle, a lot of people probably want to eat healthier, but they're embarrassed by it. When I was going to school in Rochester, New York, I was working on my PhD. A lot of my classmates would hold birthday parties or whatever, graduation at a restaurant, and at first I didn't want to explain why I didn't want to go. And one time I said, can we eat something? Can we try something healthier for at least my birthday? And all of a sudden, the entire group just said, I've been wanting to eat healthier too. Why don't you suggest something? And now all of a sudden, for everybody else's birthday, they wanted to eat something. I don't know why there's so much embarrassment about eating healthier. I think the food industry has somewhat brainwashed us to feel that way. In Taiwan, not so much, right? People hear about COVID, oh my God, maybe it's time for me to quit smoking, and they do it, right? There's no embarrassment about it. Or they hear about COVID, and maybe they shouldn't be eating so much sugar. Maybe they should be getting more sleep. Maybe they should actually quarantine, right? And there's no embarrassment factor of doing that, right? And unfortunately, I'm not sure about the small town USA. People there don't feel like they need to tell people that they're eating healthier. Obviously, it's a small town, right? You don't see large gatherings where you're kind of forced to reveal your habits, right? But I'm kind of nervous about when I return to work having to refuse food. I hope COVID has taught us that it's not embarrassing to try to be healthy. I really hope COVID has taught us that. I talked about in Western Europe, let me circle. So I've gone to a few conferences in Amsterdam, and it's a mixed bag. People have a live and let live attitude there as well with the lifestyle, but obviously, for the most part, the guy has to start the first conversation with the girl. That's why I'm thinking about going to over there. In China, probably also the guy starts, just because there's more guys than girls over there, right? But if you're a girl, maybe China is not the worst place to go after the COVID crisis to go mingle, right? But people, there's a lot of social pressure. I would say in Western Europe, there's a lot of social pressure to eat healthier. People are not ashamed to pick on your bad habits, right? I've noticed that, as high as their smoking rate is over there, it's not so high anymore, but it's been high in the past. As high as the smoking rate is over there, people really pick on others for smoking, right? Here in the U.S., especially in this area that I just talked about, there's more of a live and let live, right? And in Seattle, there's people are more tolerant of the smoking, as long as it's they do it at home, right? But away from other people. But at the same time, they like to pick on you for trying to be healthy, right? In Europe, it's the other way around, right? People have a live and let live attitude with the healthy habits, but they love to pick up. My guess is that because they have socialized medicine. So now when you smoke, when you eat junk food, it's costing your neighbors, right? So that's probably why there's so much, which is... I don't like to pick on people for their bad eating habits anymore, as long as they don't push it on me. I used to. I used to. But I feel like... I feel like I want my privacy when I'm eating healthy too. So maybe I should give people. But the problem is that food is very social here in the Seattle area. That's why I need to get out of here. In Eastern Europe, which I'm really hoping to go to, especially Belarus, now that they recently opened their nowadays as a U.S. citizen you can go there for 5 days. You got to fly through Minsk, I think. I've never been there before. I've been to, I apologize to anyone who thinks I'm mispronouncing this, Bialystok, which is former Belarus. A lot of, like I said, the girl usually starts the first the conversation, which I really like because it helps me filter out. And also, people are very open to talking about future family planning and all that. See, one of the big things I hate is that we talk about how, we're all in this together, right? If we really were all in this together, how about we get to know each other more before we waste 3 to 6 months dating, right? Why do you to the girls out there who secretly have family plans that they're not telling me on day one? Why are you wasting your time and my time if we're supposedly all in this together, right? That just never made sense to me. Fortunately, a lot of other countries have a good sense on that, especially of the Eastern Europe. Basically, anything in that circle, right? They have a good sense that they should invest for the future, right? Especially anything in this area. See, when I heard I like this area better, by the way. I mean, this area has the hotter girls, but this area has the long-term thinkers. When I first heard about COVID-19 and how so many people were presumably going to die of COVID-19, I wasn't too worried about myself dying because, when people talk about long-term goals, and, they talk about their retirement, they talk about getting married. What else do people think about when they think long-term? My brother, he's 20 years old right now. He still has a few more years of college, and he has to worry about if he can go back to campus come September, right? Or his, what job he's going to take if he graduates with COVID still going around. People think of that as long-term, right? But those are very short-term items. The long-term is what do I leave behind after I leave the world, right? And COVID-19, I hate to say this, but got me a little bit excited because it reminded me of the Renaissance. If at the end of this we have better art, we have better health habits, if we have better social habits, like I mentioned, not wasting people's time and being upfront about what you want in a relationship, if we have better computer games to play because people are quarantined and writing computer games. I was thinking along those lines. Unfortunately, people are very selfish. Do I survive COVID over the next year, right? The Taiwanese and the Japanese, they think very long term, right? I think the Japanese recently had a new government bond that was like 100 years or 150 years. And people think in terms of long-term dynasties, right? The Eastern Europe, they might be wise, but they're wise in the short term, right? Nobody in Poland or Belarus or Eastern Germany, nobody thinks dynasties over there. Nobody thinks about what they leave behind when they leave the planet, right? Definitely nobody in the U.S., especially not in Seattle. In the small town U.S., yeah, you might think about your children, but that might be the extent of your long-term thoughts, right? You're not going to think about how COVID-19 will be a big boom to humanity, right? And don't get me wrong, I would definitely prefer to live through COVID-19, but if I die for the better of humanity, I'm happy to die for that. Thanks for watching.